Good day to each of you. My name is Paul Kanarek. I am sitting in Southern California, the United States, and I had promised that I would do a 5 to 7 minute video to help support Splendor 2021, a splendid idea, if you would pardon the pun. In terms of my background, I have been in sort of the education segment, specifically helping students get into universities for close to 40 years. When I was 23 years old, I was one of the five co founders of what became America's largest test preparation company, the Princeton Review. And after doing that for 30 odd years, I moved over and became the CEO of America's largest private educational college consultancy business. And as a result, I've had the pleasure of speaking all over the world, not only about the local university admissions, but specifically about American universities. And, clearly over the years and the decades, a lot of Indian and South Asian students have sort of seen fit to come to America for university. In fact, I would go so far as to say, next to the film and television industry, university educations are probably America's most significant export, both economically and culturally. So, what I want to do today, and again, this is very much in support of this virtual conference, Splendor 2021. I want to give you sort of a sense of where I see the education sector going over the next decade or so. It's harder to look beyond that. And I hope this is useful, and I hope to speak with you in a more live environment later on. And one thing I should make perfectly clear, I'm not getting paid to do this. This is not a sponsored presentation. I believe in what the folks at Splendor are trying to do. I think this is good information to share, and I'm honored to be part of a group that gets to share things with you. So let's just talk about the near term. In the near term, as travel restrictions loosen, as famous universities seek to make up what was a significant economic shortfall brought up by the impact of COVID-19, which was to the billions of dollars, I think you're going to see only one change in the admissions landscape. I think the most popular universities will become more popular, and I think their admit rates will continue to drop. Um, and these schools I'm talking about are very specific. They are the Harvards, they are the Princetons, they are the Stanfords, they are the Oxfords, they are the Cambridge, they're the London School of Economics, they're Sorbonne. All of these universities in sort of Western European and American nations, they're going to continue to spread their arms to attract foreign students because A, those students are significantly better at math and science. B, the politics of the globe are shifting such that it is important to have tentacles that originate in American universities in other growing nations. C, these students tend to pay full price. And D, these universities like being super famous and competitive. And the impact of this will be the admissions rates over the next 2 to 3 years at the most famous universities will continue to plummet as the number of people who apply get bigger. And the people who are applying to these schools, ladies and gentlemen, are not your ordinary students. They tend to be the best of the best, the finest minds from around the globe. And as America has plateaued in terms of the number of students graduating from high school, I saw a stunning statistic that said there are more juniors in China than there are in grades 7 through 12 combined in America. And India is the youngest averaged age population in the world, and so almost certainly dwarfs what China can bring to the table. And thus, increasingly, more and more competition is going to be evident within the most famous part of the American university ecosystem. If you drop down a level, and by the way, within the American educational ecosystem, dropping down a level is not a big deal. I think increasingly when you look abroad, where you go to university has a significant impact on your earning potential. But in America, it's less about where you go to university and much more about where you go to graduate school, sort of post university graduation. And this is how I see the next 2 or 3 years working out. After that, I think you're going to see two other things begin to happen. The first is you're going to begin to see an expansion of the way the most famous universities choose to educate students. These are giant brands. Stanford doesn't want to be constrained by the fact they have a single campus. And as you realize that they want to get a more connected world, bigger brands, more talent, more money, you have to believe that these schools are going to become larger and their physical plants aren't going to get bigger. Stanford's campus is not going to double in size over the next 3 years. You're going to see a lot more ways for them to cash in virtually. I mean, even this conference, which is designed to gather all of us together, is a virtual conference for multiple reasons, not the least of which it's a great way to gather information. And so, if you have students in India who maybe are somewhat reticent to fly thousands of miles away into a culture they do not know, but who recognize the talent and value of a Stanford brand name or a Princeton brand name or an MIT brand name, you've got to believe that they will begin to engage online. And in general, online education is less expensive than its live counterpart for no other reason than there's no room and board. And I think one of the things you're going to see happen, particularly within India and China, is students being increasingly acceptive of online education as a viable way to learn from the best and the brightest. This next thing is not meant in any way to demean the place you call home. India is gigantic. The education is a growing sphere. It's probably uneven. It's almost certainly better in some cities than it is in others, and the urban areas probably have a more consistent educational platform than do the rural ones. And that doesn't even take into account the different economic substructures that are on the continent there. And so India, understandably, has been a leader, a front runner in creating wonderful virtual platforms to exchange information and teach. I fully expect those platforms to be leveraged more and more and more. Which brings us to sort of the long game. Over the next 10 years, increasingly actually, where you go to university and or the discipline you learn will become more important to your earning potential. What do I mean by that? We're going to get more efficient. Most people go to university partly for the academics, but mainly as a transitionary period between high school and life. It's as much country club as it is educational environment. It's as much connecting and making friends as it is anything else. I know this. I have two freshmen in college right now who are having the time of their lives. And if they go to school, I'm thinking it's sort of a miracle. I'm running a very expensive country club, or sometimes it feels that way. I am sure my kids are having a slightly different experience from that. But these schools are going to become more efficient. If it's truly about the education, why would I need to do it for 4 years? If it's truly about learning something, why couldn't I do that in a year and a half? Why do I have to spend, hundreds of thousands of rupees, hundreds of thousands of yuan, hundreds of thousands of RMB, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get an education? It's going to get less expensive and more efficient and a lot more virtual. And I think what you're going to see is the larger brands are going to take larger share. What will run against that is you cannot have economies and environments in gigantic populations that exist in India, that exist in China, that are growing in Brazil, without an uptick in the quality and depth and breadth of the institutions that are in those universities. So you're going to see the Indian university sector get stronger and stronger and stronger over the next 10 years. So if there is a handful of IITs right now where everybody is clamoring to go, that will not be the case 10 years from now. That handful will be two, three, four times that size to serve a population that needs it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, in a flash, is kind of what you can expect. More people devoting themselves to universities, increased competition for places in the short term, expansion of the brands in the long term, and a much more efficient delivery system. Next time, I hope we can meet either live and face to face or as a communal audience. In the interim, Splendor 2021, thank you so much for having me.